The phone rang just as the night seemed to stop breathing. It was the kind of moment that feels heavier than silence. Clara stood in the middle of her small apartment, lights off. The city outside hummed, unaware of the storm inside her chest. She had lived alone for 3 years, long enough to learn independence, not long enough to master loneliness. That day had taken more from her than she expected. A meeting that went wrong, words that stayed unsaid, a future that suddenly felt uncertain. Clara had always been strong, at least that's what everyone believed. She was the dependable one, the calm friend, the daughter who never caused worry. But tonight her strength felt thin, like glass stretched too far. She stared at the phone in her hand as it rang again. She already knew who it was. Her father. Daniel had a way of calling at the exact moment she needed it most, as if he sensed when her walls began to crack. She hesitated before answering. She didn't want him to hear the fear in her voice. But the ringing stopped her thoughts. She answered. "Hey, kid," he said. His voice was calm, unrushed, steady in a way that felt almost unreal. Something inside her loosened instantly. "Hi, Dad," she replied, trying to sound normal. He didn't ask questions right away. He never did. There was a pause. Not awkward, comfortable. The kind that made space for truth. "I had a rough day," Clara finally admitted. Daniel exhaled softly. "I figured." That was all it took. Her composure slipped. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. She sat down on the couch, phone pressed to her ear. Words poured out before she could stop them. The uncertainty at work, the pressure to prove herself, the feeling that she was falling behind in a race she never signed up for. Daniel listened without interruption. No advice, no correction. When she finished, her chest felt lighter, but her fear remained. "I don't know if I'm doing any of this right," she said softly. Daniel waited a moment before responding. He always chose his words carefully. "You know," he said, "when you were little, you hated storms." Clara smiled faintly. "I remember hiding under the table." "You thought the noise meant something bad was coming," he continued. "But most of the time, storms were just loud, not dangerous." She leaned back and closed her eyes. "This moment feels loud," he said. "That doesn't mean it's wrong." His voice wrapped around her like a familiar song, one she had heard all her life. "But what if I fail?" she asked. The question slipped out before she could stop it. Daniel didn't laugh, didn't dismiss it. "Then you'll stand up," he said calmly, "just like you always have." Clara swallowed hard. She realized something then. Her father wasn't giving her answers. He was giving her permission to breathe, to be uncertain. They talked for a while longer, about small things, safe things. Before hanging up, Daniel said one last sentence. One that settled deep in her heart. "No matter how confusing life gets," he said, "you never have to face it alone." The call ended, but the calm stayed. Clara remained on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The night no longer felt so heavy. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she could face it. And she didn't yet realize how much that calm voice would matter in the days ahead. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Morning light spilled through the blinds, soft and warm. Clara blinked awake, her father's words still echoing in her mind. The fear hadn't disappeared, but it felt smaller, quieter, like a storm moving away from the shore. She brewed coffee and leaned against the counter. The aroma grounded her, and for a moment, she felt present in her own life. Work was waiting, though, as if nothing had changed. Emails stacked up. Calls rang unanswered. And the weight of the day ahead pressed on her shoulders. Her manager called her in around 10 a.m. The office smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Polite words were exchanged. Smiles practiced and careful. Clara knew what was coming. She could see it in the way her manager avoided eye contact. The decision had been made. "You'll have 2 weeks to transition," her manager said. "It's not personal." Clara nodded, her hands resting on the edge of the desk. She felt the room tilt a little, like the world had shifted slightly off balance. Outside, the city moved around her. People were walking, laughing, living, and she felt frozen in place. By mid-afternoon, she was sitting on a park bench near the office. Her fingers traced the lines of the wood, finding something steady beneath her touch. Her phone buzzed. "Daniel." She didn't hesitate this time. She answered immediately. "Hi, Dad," she said softly, trying to hold it together. "Hey, kid," he replied, calm as ever. "You sound like you've got a lot on your mind." "I'm losing everything," Clara admitted, the words heavier than she expected. "No," he said firmly, almost as if he could see her. "You're shedding weight you don't need. Sometimes life clears the path by taking things away." Clara frowned. "It doesn't feel like it right now." "I know," he said. "Strength isn't always comfortable. It doesn't feel safe at first." She stayed quiet, listening. Daniel's voice was steady, unwavering, a lighthouse in her storm. They talked for an hour. Not just about her job, but about life, resilience, and the hidden ways people survive. He shared stories from his own past, mistakes he had made, dreams that had changed shape, opportunities he had let slip. "I didn't tell you because I wanted you to feel safe. But strength is the real safety." Clara felt a small flicker of hope. It was fragile, but alive. That night, she walked home slowly. The city lights reflected in puddles from the afternoon rain. Everything looked familiar yet different. Her phone buzzed again, a message from someone she hadn't expected, a name she hadn't thought about in years. Her heart raced. Old memories surfaced. Comfort and fear tangled together. Clara stopped walking. She stared at the screen, unsure what to do next. She knew this choice could change everything, and for the first time she felt both the thrill and terror of stepping into the unknown. Clara stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. Her thumb hovered over the screen, unsure if she should respond. It was from Mark, the man she had once imagined building a life with. The man who had left quietly, leaving questions she never fully answered. He wanted to meet. He said he missed her. The words felt like both a bridge and a trap. Clara's chest tightened. Her mind spun through memories, sweet mornings, long conversations, laughter that had once filled rooms. But there was also pain, heartache she had promised herself she wouldn't revisit. Without thinking, she dialed her father. He answered immediately, calm as always. "Hey, kid," Daniel said. "You sound quiet." I got a message," Clara admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "It's from Mark." There was a pause on the other end. She could almost hear him thinking, carefully choosing his words. "Sometimes," he said finally, "the past comes back to see if we've grown." Clara exhaled slowly. His words felt like a lifeline. She had grown. She could face this. 2 days later, she found herself in a small cafe, the air warm and faintly sweet with coffee aroma. Mark arrived, smiling nervously. The familiarity was comforting, but the years apart had left gaps that neither could ignore. They talked carefully about life, mistakes, and the ways they had changed. Mark admitted his regrets, his fears, his hopes. Clara listened. For the first time in a long while, she realized she had a choice, not just between past and present, but between who she had been and who she wanted to be. That night, she called Daniel again. Her voice was quieter, steadier than before. "You don't owe anyone the old version of yourself," he reminded her gently. "You get to be who you are now." She held her phone tightly. Tears came, but this time they felt like release, not sorrow. The next morning brought a surprise she hadn't expected. An email appeared in her inbox. An opportunity. A new role. A chance to start fresh in a city far from here. Her pulse quickened. Excitement mixed with fear, a combination she hadn't felt in years. And she knew she would have to make a decision, one that could change everything. The email still sat open on Clara's laptop screen. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, unwilling to type or close it. It was real. A new job, in a new city, a chance to begin again. Her heart raced, excitement mixed with fear. The unknown always felt this way, and yet it was calling her forward. She picked up her phone and called Daniel immediately. "Dad, it's a lot," she said, voice trembling. "Take a breath, kid," he said calmly. "You've waited for this moment without even knowing it." His words were grounding, a reminder that she had the strength to move forward. Leaving meant leaving behind more than a job. It meant leaving her apartment, her routines, and the familiar streets she had walked for years. It also meant creating a new life, with no guarantee it would be easy. Clara spent the next few nights packing slowly. Each box held memories carefully labeled, each one a reminder of how far she had come. Photos of family, books she had loved, letters she had never sent. Mark called again, asking to meet. She didn't answer. Not yet. Her focus had shifted, and clarity felt too precious to risk distraction. On her final evening in the apartment, she sat cross-legged on the floor. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, everything was quiet. She pressed the phone to her ear. "I'm scared," she admitted. Daniel's voice was gentle, unwavering. "That means you're alive," he said, "and alive is how we grow." The next morning, Clara boarded the train. The city blurred past the windows, fading from her view. She felt the nervous thrill of possibility, the weight of past fears, and the quiet pulse of hope. With each passing mile, she realized something profound. Strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about moving forward despite it. And as the train sped onward, she felt her father's voice inside her, calm, steady, a reminder that she was never truly alone. Her phone buzzed again that morning. She glanced at it, curiosity mixed with caution. The message wasn't urgent, but she felt the pull of connection and a choice she would soon have to make. The new city was alive with unfamiliar sounds. Buses rumbled past, lights flashed, and the streets smelled of fresh bread and rain. Clara felt small and enormous at the same time. Every corner held possibility. Every step felt like a decision. Her first day at the new job was a whirlwind. Faces she didn't know, names she struggled to remember, expectations she didn't yet understand. And yet, somehow, she felt ready. The fear was there, lingering, but it no longer controlled her. That evening, she called her father. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice calm but bright. "Hey, kid," Daniel replied. "You sound happy." "I think I am," she said. "Scared too, but happy." He chuckled softly. "That's growth. That's life." Weeks passed and Clara found her rhythm. The work challenged her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but she rose to meet each challenge. The city became familiar, each step a small victory. Even the apartment, small and cozy, felt like home. Mark reached out again, curious and cautious. Clara listened, thoughtful. She realized that the past could exist without controlling her present. She could remember it fondly and still move forward. One weekend, Clara visited her father. Seeing him, she felt the comfort of roots she could never forget. They sat in the living room, the quiet only broken by soft laughter and the ticking of the clock. "I'm proud of you," Daniel said. "You faced your fears. You built your strength." Clara smiled through tears, steady this time. "I learned it from you," she said. "Your calm voice, it carried me farther than you know." Daniel reached for her hand, warm and familiar. "Strength isn't always loud," he said. "Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's just a voice that reminds you, you are never alone." That night, Clara lay awake in her new apartment. She thought of the dark days, the fear, the uncertainty, and she smiled softly, knowing she could handle whatever came next. Her father's voice lived inside her now, a calm that would guide her forever. And she understood finally, strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it simply speaks.